Well, hello, all of you darling Bishes out there, and happy Groundhog's Day, which is the day that we are recording this. Now, we are officially introducing another hour of Darling Bish Hour with yours truly, Amy Phillips, and
your Bish therapist, Melissa Reich. Ooh, ooh.
What? Oh my gosh, Melissa, we're back again. It is February 1st. And we have been doing this like every month for the last 3 months with a little bonus last week when I jumped into, I was a guest on your podcast and we recap. That was a great podcast to be a part of. We went through so much. So if you are interested, if the darling Bishes haven't heard it yet, check out Melissa's episode from last week where we covered a myriad of Bravo things and beyond.
And beyond, Amy.
Yes.
And I am ready, honey. I am on clinical ready because watching
ready.
this
That's
Karen
funny.
Huger interview, I was like raging last night. My thumbs were moving faster than my keyboard and I just couldn't. I was like, I'm so glad that Amy and I are podcasting about this today because I couldn't have more to say about this.
Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
I'm very excited.
Well, I'm excited too because here's the thing. I was not raging. I was like, wow, she's really seems to be. Now, listen, I had some issues. Trust me. I had a lot of issues.
Sure.
However, I am so excited because I feel like I'm coming in with rose-colored glasses, a good overcoat of naivete, an umbrella of ignorance. And so like I need to be set straight because I was watching and I was like, she seems to really be taking up for a lot. And then I, of course, had some issues with some other things. But wow, the honesty about her marriage, the honesty about her leaving that night and why, the honesty about the narcotics, or actually, I'm sorry, not narcotics. She said they were antidepressants, which I'm extremely confused about. So that's where we have, and then not being, and then of course are you an alcoholic? And then she definitely skirted around that basically by saying she wasn't, but then by the end said something along the lines of, well, being an alcoholic. So I'm confused.
Right.
I'm happy for Karen. I am very happy that she has kind of hit a rock bottom. I'm sure she's delighted that she was the grande dame in prison because that's, look, even though she wasn't qualified to be mentoring these young ladies that she says she was, you know what? No. She needed that more than they did, at the end of the day. And if that helped her, I'm happy for that. And if her eyes are on the prize of being positive and getting through this, I'm here to be fanning the flames of the next step of her healing. And I hope she gets to it. Let's get into the real dirt. Melissa.
Yes.
Oh, hold on. I could not believe the camera work of just her coming home and just the cameras being in there and Ray and her kids. That was shocking to me. I did not expect to have it be that intimate in the car with the paparazzi going by. You feel like you're there. That was incredible journalism, and I'm not afraid to say it. I thought that was incredible journalism from the inside of a car. And then up until when Andy got there, like, wow. So, Melissa.
Here's the thing. Okay. You are not wrong. There were moments of this interview where she had honest moments for sure. And for me, I can identify what I think were the more honest moments and what I think was complete deflection. And I think for me, what I said on social media that got a lot of people were like, yes, I felt this way too, is the interview kind of gave me whiplash. Like, it's like on the one hand, she knew the right words to say, but then I was hearing things that would completely walk it back and contradict those things. And so, with my clinical experience and working in inpatient rehabilitations, I feel like I had such a good idea. Like I've seen this before. And I had such a good idea, I felt like, of what were the honest moments and then what were some of the moments that personally made me rage. Yeah. So I don't know where you want to start.
I want to start at the antidepressants. Here we have her saying like 20 years ago, which you probably, I'm guessing, were happy about her being honest. Like this started 20 years ago. Ray wanted me to get help 20 years ago, and her being super honest about that and her kids and whatever. And I was like, wow, she is really, and that, she had the DUI, whatever. And from there, she went to the doctor. He said, oh, it's fine. Just take these pills. Okay. That's where I'm feeling things will bubble up. And now she's saying that those are antidepressants. So how can did she call the pills narcotics? Like, okay, so that's where I'm at. I want to talk about the SSRIs or whatever it is that she's saying that she's too many of. Abusing. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the part that makes me rage, and there are layers to it that I'm going to break down. Okay. So number one, the one important thing that we realize is that Karen said her lawyers said that she couldn't name the medication because she would get sued, right? We remember that.
Sure do.
Let me tell you why. Because SSRIs, antidepressants, do not cause addiction. They do not cause drunk driving. They are not meds that can be abused in that way. They're not opiates. And so I'm going to explain some of the differences and what I think maybe she was referring to. But this is why it makes me very angry, because number one, antidepressants, there's so many different categories of medical, like classes of medications. Okay. So when we're talking SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, there's also SSNIs, neuroepinephrine inhibitors, and there's different classes of medications. Okay. Right. So when we say the word antidepressant, I am used to that being weaponized in terms of what is the actual medication? What does that mean? Yeah. Because while antidepressants, they're not addictive, they don't cause addiction. In fact, antidepressants are life-saving for people like me and people in recovery, right? So many folks in recovery have what we call dual diagnosis, where it's not just an addiction issue, it's a mental health issue as well, whether it's depression, anxiety, PTSD, things like that. People don't just use substances because they're bored. It's a very complex process. And so what's insulting about her saying this is that there are many people who take this life-saving medication, myself included, and then to hear her weaponize it, I'm like, Karen.
That is, okay.
Come on.
That's bad. That's really bad.
Come on. Yeah, that's super bad. And why she can't talk about it, because she will get sued, because she's talking out of her ass.
Okay.
Number one.
Okay.
Number two, it doesn't even make physical sense to me about how she was able to take more and change her dose of a medication.
Yeah.
Without having that be noticed. Because when we get our antidepressants, however you get them, you get the 30-day supply, 90-day supply, whatever it is you need.
And, I just head on over to the Vons pharmacy, because I am not smart to think ahead where I can just like get a mail to me or, do it in such a way. I just like to overcomplicate my life so that I got to go over there every couple of months and be like, here I am again. So I just head on over there. Santa Clarita, they do it up for me. So, but however she's getting them, Melissa,
it doesn't make sense. Like, so for example, if I started doubling my dose, right? Which, by the way, if I double my dose of Lexapro, the only thing that's going to happen is I'm just going to waste the medication, because there are certain milligrams of these antidepressants that once you exceed it, you're just going to lose the value of the medication. It's just not going to help. It's not like doubling up on my Lexapro makes me extra happy. It just becomes less helpful if I'm taking too much of it. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, but if you are doubling up on your Lexapro, it won't have any effect on you though. Like, even though that's not your dosage, you won't feel it in any way.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Lexapro, the dosage that each of these meds have a different level of like clinically significant dosage. So for example, 20 milligrams of Lexapro is the highest dosage of Lexapro.
Oh, I see. So if you go over the highest dosage is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not necessarily efficacious if you're going over, like if Prozac, if the maximum, and I'm not an expert on Prozac because I don't take it, but let's say the max for Prozac is 60 milligrams or 40, I think something around there. If you take 60 or 80, it's not going to be any more efficacious.
I see.
And in fact, you may have some side effects from taking more than what is clinically recommended and supported by research.
Got it. So you have to get to the max. You have to get over the max as to what you're saying in order to, for her, that's what she's talking about. So like, even if you go over the max, you're not going to have the type of effects that she's claiming. And that totally makes sense. Yes. Okay.
No.
Wow.
No. Number two, if you're taking double your dose or you're increasing it on your own, you're going to have prescription problems. So I want to know who is prescribing that. How did this not get noticed? There's something janky here that doesn't pass the sniff test to me. Now, one thing that I will say, my little clinician inkling is that Karen may be trying to talk about Xanax.
That's what I was thinking too, because that's supposed to be... Is that considered an SSRI or an I mean, it can be considered an antidepressive, right?
No. So I will tell you, no.
Okay.
Xanax is a benzodiazepine. Okay.
Right. Okay.
A benzodiazepine.
Nothing from the Salt Lake City reunion. If we learn nothing, Melissa's here to say, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so a Xanax is a benzodiazepine. It is not an SSRI. Now, Xanax treats panic disorder, anxiety disorders. It's not necessarily an antidepressant, but it does help folks with anxiety and panic. And the reason I know that is that I have taken, at moments in my life, I'll be honest right now, I've taken Xanax because with my PTSD, when it gets triggered for some reason, I've tried every other medication. My body hates it. And with Xanax, the major problem with Xanax is it's incredibly addictive for a couple reasons. So a benzodiazepine does different things to your brain and your body than an SSRI. They're completely different mechanisms. And a benzodiazepine like Xanax, what happens is our body gets accustomed to it and we need more and more and more to get the same effects. I have had people had to go into an inpatient rehabilitation because they were prescribed these by a doctor, didn't know, they weren't educated about it, and then they had a physiological dependence that they needed assistance to get off of Xanax.
That makes sense.
So, right. So my thought is that, is Karen trying to say that this is an antidepressant when in reality it isn't?
And if she goes into prison and she's cold turkey, how did she get through that? She didn't mention anything about like detoxing.
Correct. So with the amount of alcohol she was drinking and whatever this medication was, she would have absolutely gone into some sort of detox while in jail. The only thing I saw about that was I read an article that said that she... well, like the first night or the second night that she was there, she was like sweating. It sounded like she did have some detox symptoms. I would have liked to hear more about that personally.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that that's something she wants to blame a doctor prescribing the medication. Like, she literally said this in the interview. This is one thing that caught my attention. She said, I find saying that I'm an addict is basically more palatable because with the drinking, I make that choice. But with the prescription, the doctor made the choice.
Wow, right. You're right. Yeah.
And so I think that for me, this is the denial, the minimization that really, really is significant. And then weaponizing really vulnerable things like antidepressants. The whole thing just pissed me right off.
Antidepressant thing. I'm still like shocked that she went on TV and said that it was antidepressants that caused this issue, and that because of that, when she drank, that's what we were seeing, and that she didn't drink that much. So is she saying that when she drank, which wasn't a lot, because she was abusing antidepressants, that's why, she's...
Listen, if every person who drank while taking an antidepressant, if this happened to all those people, everyone would be getting DUIs. Okay. If that was really like what was happening, there are so many people in this world who drink alcohol, appropriately. They don't have a problem. They drink it in moderation, as, they don't have issues. But drinking alcohol while taking an antidepressant, now there can be some side effects. If you just stop, whether it's Xanax or an SSRI or an SSNI, if you just cold turkey stop anything, you are going to have side effects, period.
But you won't have side effects necessarily like a detox if you were to take down your antidepressants from abusing them more than the actual dosage to down to what it actually should be. You're not going to have major detox symptoms from that.
Right. That's actually called titrating. So what happens is when we are trying to get off an antidepressant or switch medications or something, the responsible thing to do by a psychiatrist, psychiatric nurse practitioner, whoever people see, is to titrate down on meds. So what that means is, like, if you're taking, let's say, the clinical dosage for Lexapro is 20 milligrams, but let's say you're taking 40. So you would titrate down to 30 and then 20 and then 10, right? And you would titrate to get to your desired level, I guess I would say. But the withdrawal symptoms are going to be vast for things like Xanax, for a benzodiazepine and alcohol, whereas for an SSRI, you're going to have side effects, but the withdrawal will be very different, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay. Well, she's making these broad, sweeping statements that don't make sense across the board. Well, she says she goes to NA. That's more helpful to her. But let's go back to the 20 years ago. What do you have to say about that?
So this is why I'm frustrated with her trying to throw a prescription med under the bus, is that the one real honest moment in this interview came when she admitted that 20 years ago, her daughter Raven and her son Brandon and Ray had intervened on her because of the level of drinking. Last year at the Potomac reunion, Ashley Darby brought to the cast that she was told by someone that Karen would day drink at Legal Seafood every day and would get so drunk that Ray would have to come and pick her up. In this interview with Andy, Karen admitted that is true, but it was 20 years ago. And so she's trying to say, well, that was a long time ago. But to me, I'm like, well, you just told on yourself, because here's what I'm going to tell you about addiction. It doesn't spontaneously recover. It doesn't disappear. It takes blood, sweat, and tears to get into a place of recovery and maintain a place of recovery from addiction. So she told on herself in terms of saying she's had problems with alcohol for 20 plus years. She didn't just spontaneously start taking this medication and then develop more problems. It's just a way for her to soothe her, her guilt, her shame, and to make it more palatable for herself. But for people who are in recovery, a lot of them came into my comments, and here's why we're angry, is when you watch people, the pain, the raw nature that it takes to strip yourself of all the stuff and to admit, I am powerless, I am humbled, I am, an addict, I am an alcoholic. That takes a lot of really serious work that people like myself, we don't take kindly to it when someone tries to do a little magic trick around it, right?
Yeah.
It's when I see somebody in recovery, what you're going to see is humility. And that is something that not only did I not see in Karen, I saw the opposite. I saw a hubris that tells me that she hasn't done some very, very important work that needs to be done. Now, that doesn't mean she can't do it.
Well, she claimed that she did it before she went into prison, which is interesting. And then the other part, so I want to talk about her before she goes into prison. But I also want to say that it hasn't been that long that this all came down. And to your point about how it takes so much work, if she's in prison and not getting the support and the rehab that she needs and the sponsorship and the meetings and I know she says she goes to NA, but if she's not getting everything that she needs, how can she really work those levels? And so for her, she probably thinks at this point that she is on the other side of it. But I have personally witnessed where this stage of people, when they have an addiction of sorts and they get to this level, they do think that they are on the other side of it, but it's not necessarily the other side yet. And they still have a long way to go. And so that's why when I was watching this interview, I had a tendency to be more, I don't even want to say empathetic, because I know you're probably one of the most empathetic people I've ever met. I just don't have the knowledge of what was actually happening. But I was thinking, well, it's better than nothing. At least she's on her path, and we're seeing some change. We're seeing some positive things. We're seeing some admittance. We're seeing some things that we hadn't seen before.
Absolutely.
But the road ahead, she hasn't quite gotten down to the very bottom of it.
Right. And for me, you're right. Listen, you're right in that there's things called the motivational stages of change. And it starts with denial, pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, and maintenance. And so, I might be missing one in there, but my brain is a little bit hijacked today, admittedly. So the point is that with these motivational stages to change, motivation is not a linear process. What that means is that we can come into awareness, taking action of our, saying, okay, I'm an addict. I need to make some changes. I'm going to prepare to make those changes and then make them. And then, there's a saying that relapse is a part of recovery. And then sometimes people relapse and that denial process starts all over again. That is why addiction is so tricky. When you sleep on addiction, when you think that you're on the other side of it, that's when it comes for you. And the biggest red flag for me that really made me mad was saying, she told Andy she wouldn't say whether she's an alcoholic or not, but she said that she's committed to a lifetime of sobriety. Yeah. Okay, here's why that's the biggest red flag on the planet.
Is she still in denial? Is that
well? Not only is she still in denial, but what I will tell you is that the main concept of recovery is literally in the 12-step program is one day at a time. Nobody in their right mind who is humbled and truly in recovery would ever say, well, this is a lifetime thing, because not only is relapse a part of recovery, but addiction is so sneaky that we can never assume that we're done with it. They call it a sleeping tiger. They have a lot of names for it, because as soon as you turn your back and you think, I got this, it comes for you. And so I think that's hard. What Jeez, I'm seeing.
So hard.
And I think that's what other people in recovery are seeing. And so But your point is very important, which is Karen does deserve empathy in terms of like, I want Karen to win. I want her to recover. I just don't like that she has this platform.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
You know, she can make these statements that are so inherently harmful and invalidating and just incorrect information, all because like this is all processes that happen when people are in addiction. It's just when you're in front of a camera and your mouth is in front of a mic, that's what causes some of the issues.
That's really tough because, you know, and she needed to speak to us on some level. She's the grande dame. She's going to speak. She's going to speak. There was no chance that she wasn't going to come out of there and not speak. However, if she really had hit rock bottom, because I'm just judging that she didn't. That's just my assessment based on everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
Allegedly, I'm just going to have to judge and say, she is absolutely like she's on her way. She's on a good path. I'm impressed by so much, but there is such a thick layer I'm realizing now of what she hasn't drilled through. And now I feel scared because, you know, she is self-admitting that she was essentially delusional. And I couldn't believe when Andy was like, yeah, you were delusional. You know, that was a pretty honest thing to say.
Yeah.
And I also thought that he did ask a lot of good questions within the realm of being, Yeah,
Andy, I was sincerely applauding him because, you know, I know maybe people criticize Andy for, you know, not being tough on people or whatever their criticisms are. But this, I'm not kidding. If I were interviewing her, I would have asked those same questions. And I think Andy really did a service for her and the viewers because I think you can tell Andy really loves Karen. He has a real affection for her and Ray. And I think a lot of the other housewives too, which is what makes those relationships so special. And when you really love someone, part of that love is like, I'm not going to love you to death. I'm going to call out the delusion. I'm going to call this out because your life is on the line and this is too important not to. So kudos, as Ramona would say, kudos to Andy because he did a wonderful job.
And I don't know if Karen had any restrictions on the things that Andy could ask her, but it didn't seem like she gave a lot of roadblocks for what he could ask her. The road seemed to be pretty open.
Yeah, which was also very surprising, you know, and again, to your point, one of the sayings in the 12-step program is progress, not perfection. And so to that point, Karen is making progress.
Yeah.
But there is still so much of this that is wildly concerning to me, and I think to Andy as well. Like because it's like she would go in and out of admitting that she had a problem, and she was like, I did a meme about it because it was so wild. She said, I don't drink and drive. This is something I just wouldn't do. So I had to be out of it to do it. And Andy literally looked at her and goes, well, you did it 4 times.
That was shocking.
I was like,
but then she corrected those stats, right?
She sure did, which was another red flag.
So
she said,
what was she talking
this
about?
Was okay. I'm gonna clear this up because I did my research. So in 2011,
yes, Bish, therapist.
I was like, no, because when people dive into semantics, I'm like, I'm going to dismantle every single part of this argument. And in all sincerity, as a therapist, you do have to use a lot of interventions to get through denial and minimization. So in all sincerity, this is something that I would do one-on-one in session. It's just I'm doing it now in a very different way.
You must have helped a lot of people.
Honestly, and here's what I can say. The greatest honor of my life is that I helped people find the road to save their own lives. I've prevented people from ending their life. I have helped people get into a space of recovery. I have prevented a school shooting. I've done a lot of things.
Whoa.
Yeah, that for me,
oh my God,
are the greatest honors of my life. So when you hear me talk about this harshly and with such passion, it's because to me, these are life or death issues. This is no joke.
And really,
and I respect
the greatest
people.
honor of your life is talking about the Real Housewives. Let's be real. I mean, all that other stuff is pretty good, but I mean, let's get down to it. Okay, so how would you dismantle when she said it was only 2 DUIs, and then the other 2 or whatever? What was that?
So the other 2 were quote unquote alcohol related incidents. Now, I tried to find what exactly she was charged with, but I couldn't find exactly. But so what that tells me is that the 2 other incidents were she got arrested or got in trouble for doing something related to alcohol, but for one reason or another wasn't charged with DUI. And so what I would say is that, you know, if I had someone like this in front of me, I would point out the minimization of saying only 2 DUIs, because the amount of DUIs that we should have is 0. That's 0 we should have. Okay. So if it's 2, we got to look at the minimization of how we're using our language to skirt our accountability. Yeah. That's where I would start.
And if there are 2 others, because what we were reading is like there were 4 total, right? Like, so the one that she got arrested for was the 4th one, if I'm not mistaken? Or was that
2011? No, 2011 and 2024 were her 2 DUIs. The other alcohol-related incidents happened between 2006 and then 2024.
Okay, so I think, got it. So there were 4 incidents. Now, the 2 unnamed that are not, she's not categorizing under DUI, in my opinion, probably would have been a DUI, but she knew somebody and they got pushed, maybe.
Yeah. Possibly, or she got lucky in some way, shape, or form. But also, like what I would say to someone is that, okay, so if those 2 had been DUIs, that would have been 4. So, you know, we can dance around all these words. But she got
charged, and she got charged with that, right? I mean,
she had charges.
Yeah.
Listen, I do have to do more digging because I was just exhausted last night and I couldn't find the exact records to say what she was arrested for or what happened. But the facts are there were 2 DUIs and 2 other alcohol related incidents. And so let's stop trying to get in the weeds with the specifics, because she's doing this to confuse people.
Right.
She's doing this to try to confuse people and to distance herself to say it's not that bad. And to that, I would literally say to her face, bullshit.
Wow.
Bullshit.
Wow. Because she's basically saying, no, 20 years ago, there was a problem. And then a doctor is the one responsible for my problem now. In between this, until now, there was no real problem that I was doing on my own.
Yeah, which is insane. I mean, it's crazy making. That's
crazy
those are statements.
That's crazy making. It's crazy making. Wow. Okay, wait, let me ask you about going into rehab. So or getting the treatment that she did. I don't know what it was that she did, but she was saying before she even went to prison, she went and got treatment somewhere, right? And whomever was working with her, a therapist, they made her watch that video. And before she went to prison, she knew she was going to prison at that point because she had been charged and sentenced. Her lawyers told her this video was coming out and to make a plea deal. And so for her to admit, this is a win for her in my book, I'm going to give her a point. For her to admit that she was still out of it on pills, that she wasn't with it enough to even consider watching the video. She refused. And that she was like, no, I'm not going to do a plea deal, which is insane, right? Would we have ever seen that video if she had agreed to a plea deal? Was that video coming out no matter what?
Well, that's a great question. There's part of me that wants to believe that if she had owned her stuff, gotten out of denial, took the plea deal, that maybe we wouldn't have seen the video. But I think that there were a lot of people involved that when she's continuing this delusion, which is what it was, when people are in active addiction, your brain is not in touch with a reality for real because of the addiction. And so I think that people involved were angry, and understandably so. And I wonder if that had something to do with it, but I don't know for sure. That's just my thought.
I can't even imagine Ray and her kids and what they must have gone through. Not only, I'm talking about like at that moment when they know this video is coming out and they've seen it. And she's refusing to see it, and she's refusing to take a plea deal. How in the world? To see them standing by her side now is mind blowing. And Brandon being there, like that tugged at my heartstrings.
Oh yeah.
And so like, I know I'm kind of jumping around here to get us to the place of where she was before she got to prison. But so she decided to not watch the video. Then after she was sentenced, she's in therapy or whatever. And the therapist says, you need to watch this. How in the world?
Which is great. By the way. Which is like great. I was like, oh, so she was somewhere where they were doing real work, because that is absolutely an intervention that would have been necessary.
Okay.
To break through some of Karen's denial.
So what did you think about her response to that video? Like, she couldn't believe it was her. Like, what was her response on par with the things that you've seen as far as like the right reaction? And what was your thought? What were your thoughts on all of pre-prison?
So I think that she definitely had the right reaction. She's like, I don't know who that Karen was. Which is fair, right? When we do things in active addiction, that is not who we are as people.
Yeah.
And so I do think her reaction, she was stunned. She was like, I think she called herself crazy or something. She used a word but it also told me that the shame and the guilt that she felt, it really pressed those buttons. It pressed those wounds for her to see that, because it is hard for us and for our ego to realize sometimes how sick we might be. And so that's where I think now this rebounding comes, where she's trying to use soft language and trying to skirt around things, because the human brain, we can only take so much shame and guilt. You know, we need to do something with that. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
But what is interesting to me is that she talked about her home was a tomb. She used the word tomb.
Which home? The home that she grew up in?
Her home with Ray. No.
Oh.
She said the night of her DUI in 2024, she was running away from home because her home was a tomb. She was so unhappy with Ray. And this is why this is so important. That word tomb, I was like, that is heavy.
Oh my God.
And it tells you that Karen is like spending so much of her time trying to pretend on the outside like things are perfect, right? With Ray and with her drinking and all of this. But people will always tell on themselves if you're paying attention. And this moment was something that I was like, oh, Karen's been miserable in this marriage for a long time. And it's so confusing because Ray is such a ride or die. But the one thing I really heard in this interview was that she told Andy that Ray said he wants her to be sober before she makes a decision about their marriage, which tells me a lot about what's been happening for them probably for the last 20 years behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's devastating, because that's not fair to Ray. That's not fair to her kids, because whatever the reason is, trauma's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to fix it. And I think, keeping someone in a relationship and I just imagine Ray going to pick her up and all these things. And so what I think on Ray's end is that a lot of treatment programs will have a family component because codependency is a huge part of, when you love someone with an addiction, you're going to be codependent.
Yeah.
And codependency, I describe as someone else becomes our emotional thermostat. That's codependency. That's the way I like to describe it.
Wow, that is really the greatest metaphor I've heard.
It's so helpful.
Is it a metaphor or is it an analogy? I don't know the difference. All right? You tell me. Which is it?
Oh, Tree, I miss her.
No, I'm actually seriously asking, is it a metaphor or is it an analogy? I don't know. I mean, what is it?
I think it is a analogy, I guess I would say.
Great. Well, you didn't warn me that you're going to do an analogy. But I like it. I like it a lot. Especially considering that my fucking thermostat and my heat is not working right now.
No.
And we've been having so many issues over the last several weeks. But anyway, I don't live where you live, so it's not that bad. I'm not freezing like practically half of the eastern seaboard right now who's lost their power
Amy,
for weeks.
Right now, it is 7 degrees and we have 17 inches of snow.
Oh, Melissa.
Yeah, if we didn't have heat, we'd have to move out. It would be crazy. But still, that's super annoying.
It's annoying, but I'm not complaining. Okay, that the person is our emotional thermostat is blowing my mind, and that makes the most sense. So do you think, what should Ray have done?
He needs to get some treatment himself, some therapy. So the program that I worked for, there was a family day component where the families would come and they would listen to lectures from the staff members, from people in recovery, AA leaders, NA leaders. They would get all of this information so that they could understand ways that they may have inadvertently been enabling, in ways that they may be codependent, because addiction is a family disease, period. It is not just the addict. It is the whole system that the addict resides in as well that makes a huge difference. Because what I will tell you is that, unfortunately, I have seen people die from the disease of addiction, and it was because they were in an enabling family system that refused to change.
Wow. When Ray says, I don't want you to make a decision until you're sober, it should be him making a decision, not waiting on her to make a decision. Is that what we're saying? Correct. Yeah.
He should at least have more agency in this decision than, he's giving Karen all this agency, but where's his? And I would argue where, Ray has given away his agency, just when she's day drinking at Legal Seafood and he's picking her up, he is giving away his power. And, again, it's because he loves her, but it does really make me feel for Ray because he deserves better. Like, everyone in this dynamic deserves better.
Right.
Karen included.
Included. Absolutely. Yeah. But what her response was, she was like, well, I'm working on it. So she didn't give him an answer, right? Like, I didn't understand that.
Right, because she's essentially saying, I'm still figuring it out. And so there's part of that that's fair, because being in recovery, you literally have to relearn everything. You have to relearn how to feel, how to process feelings without substances, how to navigate relationships, how to navigate conflict. It's so complex and confusing. But Karen does this thing where she's like, well, we're working on it. And it's like, well, how are you working on it? Because to me, her and Ray have just been in this cycle of dysfunction for the last 20 years, and neither of them know how to get out of it, which is fair, right? We don't know how to do that. And that's where I think they would benefit from some marital counseling, some family counseling. Ray maybe even doing his own individual therapy while Karen is doing hers. Whatever, just getting help to get that perspective. Like, I need help. I see my own therapist, right? I'm insightful, I'm aware, but being human means we have blind spots, and we all need help with that in one way, shape, or form.
Which leads me to my next point, because I would like to take this time to have my own therapy appointment with you. So, Melissa, no, I'm kidding. But I would, and this is another, this is a trigger warning, but I would love to discuss her acknowledging and bringing to light what happened to her when she was 19 years old. And what are your thoughts on that? I feel like I know you pretty good. And and this is like when I used to listen to Dr. Laura, and I used to try to like figure out what she's going to say to the callers. And I mean, I was only 50% right, because sometimes she would really I would be like, I did not see that coming. I have an idea what you're going to say, but I'm not sure. So like, what was that? That was, first of all, absolutely devastating, and it hurt my heart, and it shredded it for Karen. Yeah. And we've never heard her talk about this, obviously. And it's really, really sad. So
it is. So number one is that what she was saying is something that is absolutely accurate. When people get into, as they start using substances, it is typically said that that is the moment where you stop developing. Or when you have a trauma, like a sexual assault, that can be the moment where people stop developing emotionally, because they become stuck or stunted because of this trauma. So what I'm hearing perhaps happened was, at the age of 19, she experienced a sexual assault, which deserves all the support, empathy, love in the world, period. That I just want to state out the gate. I appreciated her owning it, and I appreciated that she probably learned in treatment that that is the moment where she became stuck. And I assume, which I don't want to assume, but I would assume that after that is when she started relying on alcohol and substances to dull the pain that came from that instance. So that is all real. That is all valid. That's all, yeah. But what I said before stands, is that trauma isn't our fault, but it is our responsibility to fix it. And so while it is understandable, and we to know how to do things different, we do have to have an understanding of where our trauma is rooted. I do think that she also needs to understand that she just needs to make some changes, because inadvertently she's harming the people that she loves most because of all of this together, if that makes sense. So I mean, that's kind of my thought on it.
It's interesting to hear you confirm about the stunted growth, essentially, it seems like that would be obvious, but it really isn't to a lot of people. You don't really understand that. And to find out that it sounds like no one believed her.
Right.
That is traumatizing.
And, considering what's going on in the state of our world right now, survivors aren't believed, and that needs to stop yesterday.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to have to admit this. Nobody wants to have to experience this. And it's something that can ruin your life if you don't take the reins of your life to say, okay, I am no longer going to hurt myself because of the things that happen to me that I cannot control.
God, I don't know how you get to that point. When you're young, if you have something happen to you when you're young like that, and I can completely understand how you couldn't get to exactly what you're saying until you're like 50 years old, because when you're like growing through that pain and you're just trying to survive in life, you would have to be like in therapy on a constant basis and like really wrapping your mind around things. It would be such hard work to get to that healthy place. I applaud so many people when they do it, because with age comes wisdom and more reflection. So sometimes it gets easier to figure those things out later when you're like, oh, it's all kind of clicking. I have so much distance. So, but I also think that what you're saying is, you have to take responsibility for your own self so that it doesn't damage you any further. And the question is, how do you get yourself to the point where you can do that work without...
Well, and really that work is just our actions. The only way to really take responsibility for that is to change our behaviors and to stop harming people and to deal with our stuff. And I also think that's why I was so frustrated with Karen, because not only was this a public safety issue, you know, she has people in her family who have probably been sick about this for 20 years. That's too long. It's too much for the whole dynamic. Something's got to give. So that's where I'm like, you know, it's not just her. She's hurting people around her, that's the hardest thing that people who are survivors have to wrap our brains around, is like the ways that we've hurt other people because of our struggle to really acknowledge our stuff.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Because you're bringing others down with you.
Well, you're hurting people because of our own struggle to acknowledge or to change or
Now, I want to mention, because this to me sounded very fluffy, it sounded like fluffy denial to me, which is like, she was now in this prison, and I'm not mocking it. So I hope it doesn't come off this way. Because like I said before, I feel like Karen needed it more than the other gals that she's discussing in this interview, where she was like, they didn't want to put me in general population. They did a great job with wanting to respect that. But then I decided that I would be put there because God had a reason for that, right? And so now it becomes like, it's not about... I don't know. You'll be able to articulate this, but it's like, in my opinion, it was like, oh, okay, so now you're the angel of this prison sent here to be a mentor when you need to do the work yourself on what you're doing. Why now? You're not even on the other side of this. How can you be mentoring? And yet at the same time, I'm like, okay, so what's...
Correct. Yes. You're on the right track, Amy. Yes. That is the part that I raged, because one thing that people fall into is that helping others seems altruistic. But in reality, there are people, there's a name for it in the programs of AA and 12-step programs. It's called being a 13th stepper. So there's 12 steps in the program.
No way. Really? Interesting.
They call it being a 13th stepper, meaning there are people who are in the program for the wrong reasons, trying to mentor other people when they do not have a handle on their own stuff. And so for me, one of the biggest red flags was Karen talking about how she wanted to go to Gen Pop, which I'm like, was that a choice, or is that just where they put you and this is your spin on it?
Right.
And number two, we have no business helping others until we have actually helped ourselves. Otherwise, it's performative. Otherwise, it's ego boosting. Otherwise, it's just an altruistic smokescreen that makes us look great. But in reality, you're doing the same unhealthy dynamics behind the surface. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's the vibe. That's the vibe. And so when she's saying, you know, I asked if I could help out, if I can work. And so then I was counseling these girls, and I'm like, how is that credit in prison as far as work? Like, so what is she saying there, Melissa? I don't understand.
Because I looked this up too. Yeah. So here's what she's saying. Karen she didn't volunteer to lead meetings. It was a part of conditions to get her released early.
Yeah.
She wasn't. Yeah. So it's like Judge Judy used to say, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. This is what Karen's doing. She's peeing on her leg and being like, well, look how much I've helped people. And it's like, no, you did that so you didn't have to be in jail. She was convicted and sentenced to a year, and she got out in 6 months because of her quote unquote volunteering with AA and NA. Yeah. And so my honest interpretation is that Karen went into jail. She had celebrity. She had notoriety. She was given a lot of attention that she didn't deserve and bypassed doing the real work. She kind of took a bridge over it and then went straight into helping others because that in reality makes her feel better. That soothes her ego. And I'm gonna be honest, helping other people is way easier than helping ourselves. Not only have I been
that's truth.
doing therapy like a provider for over 20 years, I am in therapy every week for the last 5 years. And I told him every week, my therapist is like, you good for next week? And my response is, until one of us dies, see you then. And it's funny.
I thought it was going to be like my reaction, which is, fine.
Yeah, I know.
I have no excuses. I have no real excuses. I'm sure I could come up with some, but okay. Anyway.
But in fairness, like, and I'm glad you shared that, Amy, because like I'm obsessed with therapy because I love my therapist and I just feel like she's the perfect person for me, which by the way, I had a lot of duds before I found this therapist. I'll just give a quick plug for people. I had a therapist, A, fall asleep while I was talking, and B, smoke a brisket during a telehealth session.
Shut it
and
right
not
now.
just
Shut
smoke. No, I'm not kidding. Not just smoke a brisket, but she acted like I was like the food channel and she was like explaining what she was doing. And I had to be like,
oh my God.
Yeah. I was like, no, this is not going to work. And then I fired her and she was really mad at me. And I was like, well, next time don't smoke a brisket when you're seeing clients. That's insane. That is insane.
Now, let me ask you this. Was this during COVID and people were going fucking crazy and making bread and stuff? So she was like, she was so, well, excuse me, but delusional that she thought she could get away with smoking a GD brisket on a therapy Zoom call with you?
Right. And of all people, me. Because, you know, the reason people don't like me is because, like, people don't get away with squat with me. Like, I see things as they are. And I'm not saying I'm always right, but you're not going to pull shit over on me. That's just not going to happen. And so part of me was like, you underestimate even me, like as your client, that you think I would think this is okay. Like, you don't even know me. But my point is that when you're in therapy with a good person who you feel like understands you, even then it's really hard. Even then, you know, there were years that I went to therapy, leaving feeling worse than when I came in, leaving in tears, crying, panic attacks. Like, it was really hard. But for me, once you get through some of those tough things, it freed me in a way, and I've noticed it frees others in a way that you don't need all of these defenses to say, oh, well, it's this person's fault or that person's fault. Like, now I can own my mistakes 100% because I have no ego that says don't do that. My defenses don't need to come up, right?
Wow.
It's just, I know, it's all so complex.
You've done the work,
I've done the work. And when people really do the work, it shows in our behaviors.
I'm trying to do the work. Does it show?
I think so,
gotta go. Can't talk anymore. Bye. Just kidding.
Bye.
You're all like, she's masking with humor. Did you see that? Masking with humor. Go ahead, Amy. We're here for you. We love you unconditionally. Okay. Anyway.
Amy, in fairness, I mask with humor all the time. I have such an insanely dark sense of humor.
I know, we both do. I know, I love that. Yeah,
we do.
We cut those parts out of the podcast. No, I'm kidding.
I say let it fly. Let people see our
I think
dark
a lot of people do have a dark sense of humor. And when we can expose it, I think it's comforting to some people. This 13th stepper thing, I feel like I have seen so much in my life, not only just personally, but also on TV and in many situations. And this is like, I've never knew that there was a term for it, but that's interesting. Now, let me ask you this. When it comes to the dynamics with Ray, and I know that like this isn't going to become a Ray and Karen podcast right now between their dynamics entirely. However, we've got her, trauma from her past, and we don't know what Ray's done in their marriage. We don't know what things he has.
Right.
And we know that he went through that whole tax situation and all of the money issues that they had. And that was a complete humiliating experience for Karen. And she reamed his ass for it on camera. Like, was very, once we got to the other side of it, in some ways she would like admit that was not cool, and they almost got divorced over it, and how she stuck by his side, and she looked like the hero. She looked like the hero wife.
Yep.
And now,
well, I think it's such an interesting point, because one of the things that fuels people who, specifically with alcoholism, is fueled by resentment. And that's something that I also notice with Kim Richards. Kim Richards would be always holding on to these resentments about she had to support her family. Kyle stole her goddamn house, like that whole thing. The one thing that will keep us sick is holding on to resentments, because the saying in the program is that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and wanting somebody else to die. So I think that Karen is, listen, and I've been with my husband for 24 years. So what I can say is decades-long relationships are hard work, honey. They are hard work. And there are seasons of marriages that are hard. And if you're married or together for over 20 years, I would say probably everybody has come to their own points of like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
We have some problems. And so I think that what happened was like Ray did that, and then she was angry and resentful, which fueled her drinking. And now he feels like, well, she stood by me, so I need to stand by her.
That's right. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. I do think there's probably some truth to that. And I also think sometimes that like some of the things Karen does, I wonder if it's to punish him for some of those mistakes that he made as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are some of the mistakes that he made, if in fact he did, that hurt her, that we don't know about? And, what are the dynamics? So, what's also interesting is she's like the grande dame, I guess. And how do people see her in Potomac or thereabouts and around Potomac? But like
she said, Wendy lives in the boonies. She was like, she lives in the boonies. I was like, Karen, you are too sick to be throwing shade right now.
I know.
Like that was the other thing.
I know.
That, we get this preview for the reunion, and that's the other thing that bugs me. It's like, Karen, where is your humility? You're trying to read Wendy about like not being a professor and letting you teach her, or whatever your stupid little read was. You should be saying that to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is not, I find it wild that Karen gets out of jail, has this interview, comes to the Potomac reunion when she was in jail for the entire season. It's almost like she's getting these special opportunities. She's being treated special because of being the grande dame, and that only serves to pollute recovery.
Well, yeah, and that sucks, because that's where the conflict is in terms of me personally and whomever reconciles watching these shows, in this situation where you're like, why are you allowing her to come to the reunion? Like, if you actually cared, you should not have her come. It's going to be a toxic environment. If anything, do what you did with Andy and have like a one-on-one with just Karen and Wendy if you want to like film that. Or I don't even know that. I just don't know. But also it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm completely fascinated to see now Wendy's in the hot seat with what she's got going on, and now Karen's going to be like, look at you. Because now this is another situation where it's like, look at you. Now do as I say, because I'm on the other side of my thing, right? So now she's 13-stepping Wendy. And what is she alluding to which is Wendy knows why I didn't thank her. And I wonder if it has something to do with this scandal that Wendy is enduring right now.
You know,
or
honestly, who knows? Because Karen will weaponize anything. If I'm being honest, she'll take anything and run with it.
Yeah.
So it could be a million things, but I want to know what it is. And, the other thing is too, I feel like when you're coming from a place of recovery and humility, how we help other people also says a lot about us in terms of like, she's like yelling at Wendy and reading her. And it's like, well, where's your empathy? Where's your humility? Which is what you would expect after someone, is in recovery from her position, right? It's just like, the behaviors are, the behaviors are incongruent, period. And that's what annoys me. It's like what she's saying versus what she's doing. They don't match. They're incongruent. And that's telling me that Karen is missing something. She's skipping something.
Melissa,
she's got
is she a narcissist, in your opinion?
Oh, boy. Okay. So we all humans have narcissistic traits and tendencies, including myself.
I absolutely do not. I resent the fact that you are accusing me of that, and I refuse to bring it up to my therapist this week, which I'm not looking forward to going to anyway. Go on.
Fair enough, Amy.
It has nothing to do with me and my comedy stylings and wanting to be on camera or being the center of attention. I will not in any way accept responsibility for that. So anywho, go on, as you were saying. Yes, I'm hearing you. Other people who are narcissists, you included. Yeah.
So I look at it on a spectrum, like clinically, I look at all things on a spectrum, right? So
interesting.
One side, you're going to have very little narcissistic traits and tendencies. And then over to the right, you're going to have like disorder, like where it's going to cross the line into disorder.
Okay. Gotcha.
I will tell you that Karen has really significant narcissistic traits and tendencies. However, I certainly can't label her, right? Because I'm not her therapist and that's not appropriate for me to do. But obviously, it's apparent to anyone with any semblance of observational skills that she has some very serious narcissistic traits and tendencies that are getting in her own way.
Yeah. She seems extremely delusional, which to me represents a level of narcissism. And that's just the way I talk as being my own therapist. Like that, she seems totally delusional.
Well, and in fairness, when someone is drinking for 20 plus years, abusing alcohol, your brain, this is the other part that I want to be really clear about. There are medical issues that can happen after drinking alcohol in excess for over 20 years. And what happens is your brain kind of gets pickled. And it takes, so there's what most people don't realize is that there's the immediate detox, right? There's like the immediate couple of weeks in a rehab center where you're detoxing, but there's also something called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, PAWS for short, PAWS. And PAWS can last for years. And so I think that in terms of what Karen's presenting with, I think there's a part of it that may be physiological, that she just needs more time away from alcohol to get to a space where her brain is functioning at a level that it needs to be.
Wow. That says a lot. That actually makes a lot of this interview make more sense than I expected. And I'm wondering at what point is she going to, like, she has an alcohol problem, clearly, but now I'm just so confused. Even though we've discussed all this, I'm still walking away going, she doesn't think that she has an alcohol problem. And yet, for the last 20 years. So what was she doing if, in fact, it was just allegedly some sort of maybe a Xanax type of situation? And if she was drinking alcohol, is she saying that it was just such a little amount that it affected the Xanax getting to that point? Or are we going to guess that she full on was like drinking all day, every day, along with pills?
Well,
allegedly.
All I can say is that she admitted to drinking all day, every day, 20 years ago.
Okay.
And that just, again, doesn't spontaneously improve or remit.
Okay.
And so she's blaming. So if you're using Xanax and alcohol, there are going to be effects like that are extreme, because Xanax when mixed with alcohol is an absolute disaster and it can kill you. And the reason why is that alcohol is a depressant, and benzodiazepines can also lower your respiration rate, your heart rate. And when paired with a depressant like alcohol, she's actually lucky to be alive if that's what she was taking, to be honest.
Wow.
So she could, but that's the point. She can blame anything she wants. She can say the doctor gave me this, the blah, 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 the blah, 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 blah. She clearly has an issue with alcohol that's been present for at least 2 decades. To me, it's less about what you're using and how much, and it's more about why are you using it and how is it impacting you. So Karen's, her work has been impacted because she was in jail and she couldn't film Potomac. Her relationships have been affected because she's on the brink of divorce and her children are worried sick. Her relationships with her friends are impacted. So do you see how when your whole life starts to become impacted by this substance, that's inherently problematic? You could call it whatever you want. You can piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, but that cannot get lost in all of this.
Well said. You know, I wonder what the Potomac ladies have actually really seen. And I think Giselle has seen and known things about her for years that she is protecting. She's protecting her. And on some level, you know, I've said it before because I've seen it. We've seen it. And like, I really respect that. It's probably the most humane thing Giselle's ever done because she will scorch earth under somebody. But she has scorched Karen a few times. But then I think she has realized the seriousness of the situation and has pulled back because of that and because of her kids. And I find that to be really fascinating. Do you remember a long time ago when Giselle said something about Karen being in Sing Sing?
Yes.
And then she completely walked it back. She's like, I was just talking shit. I didn't mean that. That never happened. Like, what? No. Think that it would be interesting if Karen would ever get to the point of being like, be able to tell her story in full.
It is, but I think a good way to kind of wrap this all up is that let's hope she does. I hope Karen wins, because when Karen wins, her brain wins, her nervous system wins, Ray wins, her kids win. The audience wins because whenever someone represents recovery in a beautiful way, it destigmatizes the whole thing. So I hope Karen gets there. She's can be a beautiful person. There's a lot I can enjoy about her. She deserves to be happy. Whether you like Karen or not, we can all agree she deserves happiness. She deserves to be healthy, and so does everyone else. So I hope that she gets there. But why people don't like me because I can be really, harsh isn't the right word, but I take things really seriously and I speak to serious things with a serious tone. And that is because when you see people fighting for their lives, this is not tea for me. This is not drama for me. This is watching somebody fight for their life. And so to me, that's really, really serious, which is why I talk about it so seriously and with such an intensity. But I really hope that Karen wins. I want to see that. I want to see them all win and happy and healthy.
I can't believe we're watching this. Like, I can't believe it. And real quick, I just want to say, when I was asking you if, in your opinion, Karen is a narcissist, it just reminded me, the reason why I said that is because when Teresa went to prison and she came out, we all thought, well, this would be the time and the place for her to have some humility. And she had some softness. She had a little more understanding but she didn't. She was the same person,
Correct.
But, she didn't have an addiction problem to any kind of substance. So, she didn't need to work any steps in order to get there. However, you'd think that being in a situation like that, you would do other types of work. And yet, she, when she came out, it was all completely the same. So for Karen to go in there, she did do some work, which I applaud.
She did.
And she came out. But my God, Melissa, with these housewives, I mean, prison, the addictions. It's so intense what we see. And
it is, which is why I'm grateful that I can actually do something to help people, because people will listen to this and they'll understand addiction in a better way.
That's a really good point. Yeah. That's the point of this podcast, really. And more specifically, I mean, your podcast, which is that in the world of reality television, this cuckoo craziness that you go to as an escape because it makes you feel better about yourself, or you become invested in these people who are somewhat unhealthy and egotistical and, are with their glam squads. At the end of the day, they are putting their lives on the line, essentially, and showing us the dirtiest of dirty, even though they think it's shiny and beautiful. At the end of the day, here you're able to speak on such a serious matter and help people who are watching it maybe get a handle on someone in their lives, or maybe their own, or, your objective here is really, it's the best one I've seen as far as an angle on podcasts in the world of reality television.
Well, you're a little biased, Amy, because you gave me my start, but I appreciate that.
That's why I know you set you up so that you would say that. No, I honestly, no.
We're a little biased, but I appreciate it.
I actually, no, I'm not, though, because I would say, like, this is why I like the clinical diagnosis of it, because no one's doing this. And doing it well. Like, no one's doing it. And if they are, they're not doing it like you. And then also, like, the Bravo docket, and they have the law angle of it. These are the things that we don't know as pedestrians that are going in. I'm doing impressions and I'm kicking around fun ideas. But this is really a beautiful thing that we can take away. And I really loved that Andy did this interview. Made me think, is he conflicted with this show and things like that? But at the end of the day, he needs to walk away and know, like, this is this is real stuff, and we are able to see this. And thankfully, Karen is showing us. So
for sure. Because the one thing I know for sure is that it takes a village to work to overcome or address any issue that humans suffer from, right? Any issue. It does take a village. We cannot do it ourselves. We need help. We deserve help. It's okay to ask for help. And I think that Karen, at the end of the day, and these housewives that you talk about, they're flawed and just like all humans are. But I hope that really what I've done too is validate people in recovery, because a lot of people in recovery, including Chef Stuart O'Keefe, came into my comments, by the way. Chef Stu came right into my comments and said, thank you for talking about this, because, he has some experience in this area. Yeah. And people came into the comments, including him, to say, this interview felt off, but I wasn't sure why. So thank you for, kind of talking about this, because for people who are in recovery, I imagine that this could be very triggering. It could be very invalidating. So hopefully that's been helpful as well. Yeah,
I think so too. So hug a therapist, hug a housewife, hug yourself,
hug each other, hug yourself, hug your neighbors, hug humanity. I mean, we all need a damn hug and a good cry.
Yeah. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you about this. So thanks. And I love having our darling Bish hour. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. Of course, my podcast, Drama Darling, is always up on the public, Drama Darling, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want more bonus episodes and video and ad-free, head on over to patreon.com/Drama Darling. And Melissa, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist, where I will post some of these interpretations and engage with people in the comments, which is really fun. Well, sometimes it's less fun and more annoying because people yell at me and they say mean things. But, I manage that. Listen, being a therapist has prepared me my whole life for being not liked. I've had people threaten to kill me, clients. I've had people throw chairs at me. I've had people...
Holy shit.
Sometimes being a helper, like,
so you're on the Real Housewives?
I mean, basically the real therapist of, yeah. That should be a show. That would be wild. I mean, you couldn't do it, but whatever. So, but in all seriousness, I appreciate the community over on Instagram. And also, of course, just like Amy, I am on Patreon, whereas really where we have so much of a kiki. We do full video. We're doing a Bravo book club, Amy. I don't know if I told you that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to do the book that Miss Amy Phillips was the voiceover
narrator
for it.
You're doing Not All Diamonds and Rosé?
We are.
Oh my God. That's like doing a Bible. I mean, you're really jumping in. That's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's an homage to our darling Bish, Miss Amy Phillips.
Wow, I'm honored. So yeah, you got to listen to the audiobook to get my narration. So yeah. That's really, that's so cool, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah.
And written by Dave Quinn, of course. So
yes, of
amazing.
Course.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, I read it all.
We don't want to forget about the author, but right. But Amy, thank you so much. I love our darling Bish hours, and I have to say, I've been getting a lot of really great feedback from them. Great. So I'm glad that, I think it's wonderful when we genuinely love and appreciate each other, and then the audience genuinely loves it. And I'm just really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, you guys, for listening and for being so supportive. Go ahead and give our individual podcasts 5-star reviews. Say something nice. We can always use it. And we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.